Hey, I've finished my Hogger cosplay. Just kidding. Keep watching to see why I built this full-sized garbage material test. Hello, I'm Kaz, and welcome to my lair. Now, you're here to see the garbage bag test of Hogger. Now, first let me explain what that is, because it's a little confusing. I first heard the term garbage bag test from the Stan Winston School of Character Arts. Now, they coined the term when in producing the Alien Queen for the Alien movie. They didn't know how it would look. They wanted to test out quickly what this alien creature would look like on screen. So instead of spending all the money and time to build a full-scale creature outright and maybe having it not work correctly, they first built it out of junk, like cardboard, old foam, garbage bags, and they built a full-scale alien queen and then took some video tests of it to see if it would move and act and occupy the space on screen that they wanted to. So that idea has really stuck with me since I saw it. I will put a link to it in the description below so you can go watch it. So I decided to build a full-scale version of my costume out of garbage material. And you'll see it's mostly cardboard, but I still call it a garbage bag test just to, herald back to where I got the idea from. So let's watch and see how I built it. I got set up with a few big boxes, my box cutter, and a hot glue gun. Later I'll also be using masking tape and some cheap nylon rope. But I started off with making the rough shape of the head. I have a pretty good idea of how big I wanted to make it, so I just went for it. I needed it big enough to match my proportions that I had in mind, but small enough so that I could puppet it effectively. And the head is a huge focal point, so it seemed like the best place to start. Next, I started building up the shoulder area. The final design will be much better supported. I'll probably use a backpack frame or something. But for this test, I just needed the general shapes. I'm not concentrating on making the construction perfect by any means. I'm going for build speed. So you can see I built some loops over my head and out my back, kind of similar to how I built up the back of Greymane's neck, but this is just on a much larger scale. Oh, and throughout this build, you'll see me on certain pieces looking at my phone. I'm using a GoPro to record the footage, so me looking at my phone is looking through the viewfinder on my phone, and so I'm using it as sort of a live mirror to see if I'm getting the shapes that I want. Moving on to the neck, I made some thin loops of cardboard, one to match the size that I needed coming off the shoulders, and one to match the size coming off the head. Then I just filled in some concentric circles of the similar shape. This is kind of like how Adam Savage did a loop construction on his Totoro, or the corset boning on his bear. This is the easiest way for me to test out that sort of thing. So I just know that this area needed to be as lightweight and flexible as possible. Now I've slowed down the video so you can better see how I like to try things on during building. I am trying it on not only to see if it fits, but to see how well it'll move. Even at this point, I'm trying to put character into Hogger by taking energetic stances and testing out movements that I think a gnoll would do to test the range of movement I can get. I'm also trying to envision the full character even from this early stage. Moving on to the leg, I knew this part of the costume would be challenging, and I was having the hardest time visualizing it. I know it looks a little chunky, but this test gave me some confidence moving forward with the design. I love how the heel movement rippled up the leg and affected the knee and the angle of the thigh and everything. Now at this point of the build, I put it on and walked around with it. It's not quite all the way done, but I did notice some big problems. First of all, with the head and the neck, it was centered on my body, but since I wanted to use my hand as the head, it needed the creature's body needed to be a little offset, or I needed to build up on my right side to make up for the lack of my arm and shoulder that were going to be over there. So I knew I needed to do that. Second, I realized that the head was going to get really heavy really fast, no matter how light it was. I mean, that you saw, it was just cardboard, and it would be a real strain. I needed a way to be able to rest my arm. So I needed to come up with a solution for that. And thirdly, I wasn't entirely convinced that the legs would work. I wanted to do a little bit more testing, bulk up the legs and see if they would work when they were three-dimensional instead of just being on one cardboard plane. So here's the part 2 of my cardboard build. So the first order of business was to get an armrest. My idea was to build a breastplate of sort, at least something rigid to support it's only what I can call a chest spike. I needed a straight, rigid piece that came out so that I could rest Hogger's head or my arm on it. But I needed to be able to have it move slightly so it wouldn't get in the way of performing. So the way that I taped it onto the chest plate, it would pivot back and forth. I knew the neck would be wide enough that it would still be able to have nice curves despite having a straight spike inside it. I also worked on adding bulk on my right side, rearranging things to make room for my arm to move more comfortably when it was forward. That's the great thing about working with cardboard. It's so easy to cut and glue. I could work really fast. So moving on to the legs, I worked at a way to hook the current leg to my belt, and then moved on to try to bulking out the leg. It kind of makes me laugh how silly it looks, taping garbage to it and then tying it onto my leg with a piece of rope. But whatever works. Now I needed to add out a little bit of bulk to the toe and the foot part to see if my idea would work there. And moving on, I knew I needed to test out the arm, so here I am building the hand. The arm is a very simple construction, just a wiggly wrist joint that I made using tape, an elbow joint that was just using some rope, and the shoulder. I knew the shoulder needed to be pretty free moving, so the way it was attached to the body, or the shoulder area, the body part, was just using a thin piece of elastic. Here I'm finishing up the last thing, just making a simple rod to control the hand with to test that out. And then you'll get to see the whole costume on in a sec. There you go. So there's the hands-free part to show you how the chest spike works. So now you see that I have readjusted things. I think that the chest spike that I did to rest the head on was genius, and it worked far better than I thought it would. I know the little wraparound cardboard thing, I'll probably convert that into a sort of effects corset or something. Something that I can have like a firm plate, maybe a breastplate, like a Warbler chest plate thing. I don't know. To be able to support that. And the way that if I can get it to pivot like I did in the cardboard test, that would be great, because then I can rest the head and have the character still look alive, because before I would just drop the head and it would hang down. But having it up like that and being able to just sway a little bit with my body movements, that actually looked really cool. So I'm hoping to preserve that in the final design. I was pleased with how the second arm, or the bulking out of this side of my body, worked. Oh, by the way, the second arm will be a puppet arm just like my left arm. A second puppeteer could come in and control it, or I can have the option to maybe pose it either slung over the shoulder holding an axe like he has in the game, or like at his hip holding it to his belt. Haven't decided, maybe I can do both. And the legs, they seemed a little more promising. There was some mistakes I made with it, with bulking it up in that way, so I kind of changed my direction slightly on those. But I'm confident enough in the concept to move forward, and I think that they'll work great. I'm excited because I am kind of using my my 3D skills in rigging to. I've rigged many animals, so being able to build the skeletal structure and the rigging, I'm basically like a human IK handle, if you know 3D. So I think it'll be fun. I am excited for how it's working out. There may be one more test that I take with the head and neck. Maybe if I cover the neck area with black plastic and try to plan out my vision holes, that would be something I should probably do before I start building that part. Anyways, that was my garbage bag test. I'm really glad that I did it, actually. It really only took me about 3 or 4 hours to build, and I really learned a lot about how I need to approach this costume. I discovered those potential pitfalls early with garbage materials instead of wasting my time with real materials. So I hope that you enjoyed watching. I hope that you'll subscribe and hit the bell so that you'll be notified the next time I post something. Remember, you can follow all the updates on my Hogger build on all social media, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, with #WantedHogger. And I just hope that you'll enjoy this build. I'm really excited for it. Anyways, I'm Kaz, and I'm reminding you to embrace your inner beast.